In the early years of the Christian community, it was a sense of joy in the hearts of Christians that most attracted people to seek out this Jesus Christ, whom the community proclaimed. This sense of joy was not a giddiness or permanent good mood. It was a deep sense of peace and gratitude that filled them and showed on their faces and in their voices and in their footsteps. It was a joy and confidence that came from knowing that they were embraced by a love that is constant and faithful. It was a joy that did not depend upon circumstances, and nothing could take that joy away from them. That joy is described in the words of the song, "How Can I Keep From Singing?"
No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing?
How can a joy like this be sustained, especially in the face of the hardships and tragedies of life? We only need to look into the heart of Christ for the answer to this question. Our joy is grounded in an unwavering trust in the one who loves us. Jesus points us to a God who cares so deeply about us that every detail of our lives is in God's care. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus teaches, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 small coins? Yet not one of them has escaped the notice of God. Even the hairs on your head have all been counted. Do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows." What keeps us from trusting God? Trusting involves letting go of our need to be in control. In our Western culture, we are taught at an early age that we need to be independent and self-sufficient, and to rely on ourselves and our own abilities to create a life for ourselves. That is not a bad thing. It is certainly part of becoming a responsible adult in the world. Yet when our self-sufficiency fails us, we soon realize that there are so many things in life beyond our control. It is only at this point that we are willing to let go and trust our ultimate well-being to the one who has counted the hairs on our head. The invitation is always open. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves. We can only experience this invitation to come and find rest through prayer. In the Gospels, we see in Jesus one who always makes time to go apart from the crowds, to spend time to connect with his Father. The report about Jesus spread all the more, and great crowds assembled to listen to him and to be cured of their ailments. But he would withdraw to a deserted place to pray. No doubt, as the disciples noticed the frequency of Jesus praying, they were moved to ask him, "Can you teach us to pray?" Jesus' response in Luke's Gospel was a simple call to trust.
Padre nuestro, que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre. Venga a nosotros tu reino. Hágase tu voluntad, así en la tierra como en el cielo.
Trust in God's greatness, who loves you like a good parent. Trust that God's will for you is always for your good.
Danos hoy nuestro pan de cada día, y perdona nuestras ofensas, como nosotros perdonamos a los que nos ofenden.
Trust your need for God's nourishment every day, both physical and spiritual, and God's forgiveness for yourselves and for those who you hurt.
Y no nos dejes caer en la tentación, mas líbranos del mal. Amen.
Trust your need for God's grace in your life struggles with sin and your hope in God who conquers all evil. Even when Jesus faced evil, he affirmed that God's love can be trusted. After his own baptism, Jesus faced temptations from the evil one to power and status and comfort for himself. Yet he refused to give in, trusting that God had a greater purpose for him. In the Garden of Gethsemane, on the eve of his crucifixion, Jesus made an agonizing plea to God. Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup from me, but not what I will, but what you will. And even after feeling abandoned on the cross, his final act of trust was, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. In the heart of Christ, our most profound moments of darkness and fear, when we feel most powerless and vulnerable, we can, like Jesus, let go and fall into the arms of our God who waits to raise us up.
When I think of joy, it takes me right back to childhood. Of course, I'm a storyteller, so I'm used to remembering. But in childhood, I can still remember being very little and sitting right in the front row at church. And as a little girl, I sort of had to make up my own little story of the Mass because it was in Latin at that time, and I loved being with my family, so I would just look at the statues and sort of make connections as if they were part of my family. And a big thing I remember is that if I got a little distracted, as children can do, my dad would take my hand and he'd hold my little tiny hand inside his, and it just went deep inside me, that love that we had in our family that then was connected to the love that I had for Jesus and the saints. And it was like joy got planted in me. I remember loving singing songs and saying prayers together, learning certain prayers that had big words in them, like the Memorare, which was a prayer to our Blessed Mother. And it was like I was being inducted into something, and I liked that. I remember my 4th grade teacher, our music teacher. She was the only lay teacher in our school. And she asked me in 4th grade if I would help with singing the morning Mass, because she had a bad case of laryngitis and she couldn't do it. She sang 2 Masses every single morning. And I was so nervous and excited, but when I got there and I began to sing, it was like I was now part of something even bigger, this being a part of the Mass. And I was nervous, and she'd say, "Sing right out, dear. Sing that joy in your voice." And I would feel that I was like Maria in The Sound of Music, singing out to the hills. And it was very exciting for me. And I can remember the very first time when we went down to communion together, Mrs. Burcham, my teacher, and me, following her and seeing her holding her hands in prayer. And I looked at her, and she looked like she was so connected to God. And I remember feeling like, I want that. Whatever that is, I want that. And I think my family and my teachers did a lot to teach me what it is to want to be close to God. And then when you get close, you feel that joy.
We're still trying to figure it out after 30 years of marriage together. I'm 53, Bernadette's 52, and it seems like every day you got to get out of bed and you got to say, I'm showing up, and I know he's showing up, and I want my relationship with Christ to work. It seems like there's over 7 billion people in the world, And I'm amazed that we met and that we're together. And it seems like no matter what we do, God has, I trust He has a plan, and He has, there's a reason for us meeting, and there's a reason for us being here. And out of all the people in the world that we met, that I trust, that He puts people and events in my life that help me grow. And I know crap happens, stuff happens in life. And it seems like the good and the bad, as I'm getting older, that seems to be a reason for that. Looking back and having faith that He's guiding me. He's guiding us.
Yes, and also every time we go through something, which we always go through things, with our 4 sons, with all these years being married, our families, friends, everything, we always go through things, and God always shows up. And He shows up in the most unpredictable people, strangers, some random article I read, or a song, but He always shows up. And then if I listen to that guidance and sort of go toward it and just give it a shot, so much joy and comfort comes into our life, and it's almost never failed.
Sometimes it takes an aha moment to really realize how God is important in our lives and the impact that He has on them. Well, I just recently went through the death of my last grandmother. She was very important to me, as all my other grandparents were. I kind of lost them in a consecutive order. They were all very, very important, and I think that those 3 deaths really made me realize the impact that God has on me and on everybody else around me. Every time they were in critical condition, I always said, whatever you think is best, because if I asked God to please keep my grandparents alive, I would be devastated. I would think to myself, you did this, how could you do this to me? But in reality, God doesn't always do what we like, but that doesn't mean we still can't talk to Him. That doesn't mean we still can't trust Him, because He's always there for us, always.